Everyone to creating. Okay, there we go. Welcome everyone to our session this afternoon on creating an interactive health science program. And we're going to be sharing some wearable do-it-yourself simulation experiences and ideas that we put together that you can create on a budget. And we hope that you find some that you will use in your program. So before we get started, here's a brief outline of what we're going to be covering in our session today. I'm going to talk a little bit about what types of teaching strategies resonate with our Generation Z students. We're going to talk a little bit about the benefit of wearable simulators, and then I've got at least a dozen to 15 different types of simulation experiences that we've gathered that we've got here today that we're going to show you how you can hopefully do some of them yourself. We've got a few best practices and then a few slides on some ready to use wearables that we offer, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A at the end. So let's kick it off by talking about how do we engage with Generation Z students today. And if you're a teacher in the classroom, you know that this generation is very, very tech savvy. And while millennials were seen, using like 2 screens, this Generation Z can go between as many as, say, 5 screens. They've got phones and tablets, computers, gaming devices, and they can multitask between all of them. And that means they also tend to have a very short attention span. They're used to brief things like tweets and instant messaging instead of long emails. So interesting statistic, there was research from Microsoft. They found that the human attention span is shortening. At just 8 seconds, they say it's now shorter than the attention span of the average goldfish. And in 2000, that was 12 seconds. So how do we engage students that have such a short attention span? Another thing that's interesting about them, they view the internet and online resources many times as knowing more than teachers. And many of you may have had students that challenged you in class, or perhaps sent an email or asked you about something that they found online that perhaps contradicted with something in a textbook or a lecture. So they tend to connect more easily with teachers as facilitators or guides. And some of our most effective teachers now are doing tasks right along with the students, showing them that it's really okay to make mistakes because you learn from them. Instructors and teachers now are more like coaches, and may need to adapt teaching for this new generation. So if you happen to be a longtime instructor, you may have to think about changing the way that you teach, and that is no easy task. So how do we teach this generation? Well, we may need to modify what we do a bit. If you're used to doing the long lectures with PowerPoints and so forth, you may want to not use them, or if you use them, certainly incorporate things like quizzes and activities and hands-on demos every few slides. Provide them with more than just the textbook. Things like videos, online activities, group work, and models tend to work really, really well with this group. If you use a variety of approaches to keep their attention and give them experience, that's really what seems to resonate. So if you can be somewhat flexible in your teaching methods and find new and different ways to communicate with your students, you should do very well. So again, it's all about the experience. We found that students are reading less and prefer active hands-on learning. They want to be successful, and they tend to disengage from learning if they don't see the relevance that it's going to have later on in life. So that's why we found hands-on learning, we really feel resonates with these students, and it provides the experience that can relate to life. So one type of hands-on resource that Generation Z students really find engaging are wearable simulators, and they provide that experience that they really love. So we recently had a research study completed showcasing the benefits of a wearable geriatric simulation suit that we have. And this study was completed by Allen College assistant professor Stephen Bowen, and he studied the effect of geriatric simulation scenarios on his graduate occupational therapy students. And this is a quote from him. He said, "When you're asking an elderly person with arthritis to open a jar, you need to think about it a little differently." And he said, "It's good for students to get a realistic perspective before they go into practice so they can better understand what they're dealing with." So he used a wearable geriatric simulator. And another thing that we offer, it's a geriatric sensory impairment kit. And it's puts students into the shoes of a geriatric or aging person that has some physical conditions of aging. And here are a few things that his students learned by having these wearable experiences. First of all, The aging simulations seem to improve empathy toward the aging population. He said geriatric simulations can promote understanding of those targeted populations. The exercises can also help students understand both potential struggles and the benefits of aging. And he believes that with increased sensitivity comes improved care. So we certainly have seen and heard that from many, many teachers who have used some of our wearable simulators. So now we're going to share some ideas that we've created using low-cost DIY wearable simulators. And again, we hope that you find out even one or two to try that might help make your class more interactive. So number one, visual impairment. And this is one of the easier ones. If you wish to have some kind of visual impairment, whether it be glaucoma, cataracts, so forth, here are a few ideas that we recommend. First of all, you could wear glasses smeared with soap or Vaseline to simulate cataracts. Or you could wear glasses with the wrong prescription, or wear sunglasses indoors to simulate macular degeneration or even glaucoma. Sometimes when you fly, you might get sleep masks on a plane. You could use those even for total blindness. Of course, you can tell your students just close your eyes, don't peek. That could work too. Or you could take clear safety glasses. You can buy window cling material on Amazon in a dark color. You could cut a hole in the middle for glaucoma, or you could put a dark circle in the middle of the glasses for macular degeneration. And just those very simple and easy things can help you put together a very effective low-cost visual impairment simulation. And those types of materials, you could buy several and have set up stations, and that way you could have multiple students perhaps rotating through visual impairment stations and have a different visual impairment at each station. So there you go. Arthritis in the hands and feet. Here's one that's pretty common. You might have heard taping together the thumb and forefinger of your dominant hand and then binding the three fingers of the other hand will restrict movement and fine motor skills. So a very easy way to kind of simulate arthritis. We've also heard of popcorn kernels placed in socks and shoes to simulate the foot pain associated with poor circulation, neuropathy, and arthritis. And then if you put your hands in gloves filled with unpopped popcorn kernels, that can also dull the finger's ability to feel, also simulating arthritis. So those are just a few easy ways you can build in some arthritis simulation. Loss of tactile sensation and numbness in the extremities due to aging is really quite common. So to simulate this in the hands, you could try a few different types of gloves. Sometimes wearing several pairs of thick gloves while writing, tying a shoe or buttoning a shirt to simulate, or even wearing thinner gloves while trying to fill a pill bottle can simulate impairments like numbness or neuropathy. You can even get something like a wrist and hand brace, and you could use that for loss of dexterity or even restricted range of motion. And sometimes you can even get things like that donated from your students. So it doesn't even mean going and purchasing anything. But again, easy ways to use common objects to simulate some of those tactile sensation losses. Hearing impairment, another one that's not real difficult. To simulate hearing loss, you could easily use things like earplugs or even those noise canceling headphones do a great job of blocking sound. Tinnitus, that ringing in the ears, can be simulated by simply playing a sustained high-pitched noise of some sort. And I've even found that if you go on YouTube and put in tinnitus simulation, there are simulation videos that have those sounds in them that you could also play and have your students listen as part of a simulation. And hearing loss over time could be simulated gradually by simply gradually turning down the volume on a device that plays music or the sound of voices or something like that. Again, simple but very effective ways to get your students thinking, what would it be like to have a hearing impairment? And you can tie that into, as you age, if you have hearing impairment, what does that do to people socially? Do they become isolated, withdrawn, and things like that? So again, it can be very effective to walk in the shoes of someone that has a hearing impairment. Now, here's an idea for COPD and emphysema. So to simulate conditions like that, you could do the following. One thing to do, very easy, have your students breathe through a short straw as long as they can. sounds easy, but it's really not. If after a while, it's very fatiguing, and claustrophobic is the wrong word, but it makes you gasp for air because you aren't breathing at full strength. So can be very effective. Or another thing you could get as a wearable, you could get a compression garment, or sometimes called binders, that enable the wearer to physically experience COPD's typically strenuous, labored, shallow upper chest breathing only, as well as the subsequent fatigue, sometimes irritability, and even emotional distress that can inevitably result from the sensation of that not being able to get enough air. You can find compression binders online very easily, and many of them come adjustable to different body sizes. They have Velcro, and so they usually fit quite a variety of student shapes and sizes. So that might be something that you'd like to try. But the straw one, very easy to do. You could get a bag of straws, and the whole class could do that together, and then debrief and talk about what that would be like to live like that. So aging in general, to create your own aging simulation experience, you could gather a series of things from Walmart or even budget online sources that you find, things like ankle and wrist weights, ACE bandages, back braces. We found even weight training vests, along with things like canes and walkers. These things, if you put them all together, can simulate things like mobility challenges, fatigue, loss of strength, restricted range of motion, and even osteoporosis can be simulated with stooped posture by wearing a weight training vest. Many times that will pull the chest forward, and you tend to start walking with almost a hump, or certainly not straight posture. And those ankle weights, if you put them on, sometimes can help simulate like a shuffled gait, as seen with some elderly people. So, and if you put all of those together and students put them on, and then they have to ambulate, maybe try to go up some stairs, or if you have a cane or a walker and they've never used one before, very eye-opening. You can have them try to go through a doorway, get around and do some activities of daily living, and it can be very difficult, and it can be a very big aha moment for your students to have to go through that. So mobility challenges, certainly using things like canes, walkers, wheelchairs if you've got them, even crutches and splints, and have your students do a series of tasks, perhaps walking across the room, picking something off the floor, maybe having to go up steps or something. If they've never used some of these devices before, again, very, very eye-opening. I know the first time I tried a walker, I thought, wow, how do you go down the stair or around a corner and through a door? I mean, it's a lot to manage. So many times you can get these types of items fairly reasonable online, or even donated. Maybe you might have had a family member, students might have had somebody that had crutches, they needed them, and they're better now, and they're sitting in a closet or something. Gather as much of that as you can, so you can have multiple students doing these activities simultaneously, and it makes your classroom management a whole lot easier. So here's an idea if you want to do weakness on one side of the body, or stroke. You can simulate paralysis on one side by using, again, a series of braces and bandages on one side. By doing so, it can make it difficult to do daily tasks, and especially if you have them ambulate, simulating stroke or other related causes of this condition. They have to really think about how they're going to do that, and what that feels like, and how that can impact greatly their daily life. So again, just a very simple collection of braces, slings, cane. There you go. You've got your own wearable simulation experience for stroke. So again, could be very effective. Now here's one for pregnancy, and this is, we got a couple of different ideas here. We've had our own pregnancy simulation suit for probably 20 to 25 years that we offer. There's a lot of other ones out there in the market too. There's Empathy Belly, something called With Child. But if your budget doesn't allow for something like that, or if you just want to do a really quick one, there are a couple different do-it-yourself projects you can try. First of all, you can take a backpack, and we know all students have a backpack usually, and you can fill it with about 25 to 30 pounds. And the goal here is to fill up the space in the backpack to represent average weight gain in the third trimester. And of course, we all know people that have gained a lot more than that, but that's usually a good safe amount of poundage. And then you could have the students wear it backwards so they can feel the difference in their center of gravity. And then when they've got something like that on, then you can have them do things like try to bend over and tie their shoe or pick something up off the ground, or perhaps go up and down stairs, just feeling what it's like on the lower back, the different center of gravity that a pregnancy would feel like. And then you could also do something like filling warm water in a hot water bottle or a beach ball and wrapping it with baby wrap or a sling and wearing it low on the abdomen. Again, getting you could even use something like a medicine ball or a smaller exercise ball that has some weight to it. Again, strap it to the student and have them try things like tying their shoes, picking things off the floor, sitting and standing. How does that feel? And it might be the closest you get to some of your male students to have some empathy and understanding of what it's like for anyone that has a baby. So there you go. There's a couple ideas there for pregnancy. Now here's one that may or may not work for your program, depending on what you're trying to teach. But for breastfeeding, there are some commercial simulators out there that will simulate that, but an easy way to create your own. You could use a bra and cut a hole in the nipple area. There are things called nipple shields that you could stick in that, and that could simulate breastfeeding. You hold up, perhaps $1 an infant simulator up to that area, and you can see the commercial version there. Fairly simple to replicate that easier if that's something that you teach in your course. Now, this is a really interesting idea that was recommended by a post-secondary certified nursing assistant instructor. Again, it's not something everybody would do, but she said her students never again thought the same way about patient dignity and incontinence. And this was really important as her students were going to go out and work in nursing homes. And she wanted them to recognize the importance of, being attentive to patient needs, as well as pride and dignity. So she would give everyone an adult brief at the beginning of the class. She'd send them off to the restroom with a cup of water, pour it in there, put them on. They had to wear them the whole class period to see what it's like to sit in that uncomfortableness, and then debrief about it afterward. Again, maybe not something you do in high school, but she did it at the post-secondary level and had some really profound results with that. And I thought that was really an interesting idea. So now we're going to share a few best practices for using wearables in your program that have been shared with us by instructors. So first of all, encourage group interactions whenever possible so your students can build off of each other's experiences. And we found that when teachers use stations, it's a great way to be able to implement a variety of wearable experiences so your students can then rotate through them, and it makes your classroom management easier with a lot less wait time for your students. You might want to consider assigning students to a specific role at each station, like one might be a patient, and then the other might be a healthcare worker, and they have that chance to experience the condition and then experience helping someone with the condition and then switch. So there's a lot of different ways you could set up stations and use wearables. Another tip, provide opportunities for reflection after each experience. You can do this as a large group, a small group, or even pairs. It's one of the most impactful ways to use wearable simulators. You always got to make sure you have that debrief built in. We have also highly encouraged things like journaling exercises. We found they're really good especially if you provide some key questions for students to answer about the experience. You may be amazed at the writing that you get out of students' post-simulation experience. And then if you can provide pre and post-reflection activities, it's really helpful to set them up for success and get them thinking about what they're going to be doing and what they hope to learn in the wearable simulation experience. And then again, after, did you meet the objectives? What have you learned? And so forth. So again, take time to reflect. And here are a few good questions at the end of the experience that we would recommend that you use. There's many, many more. But again, how did it go? How did you feel? How could you make this a good experience for your patient if they had a condition like the one that you experienced? How will this change the way you interact with patients that have these conditions in the future? What did it feel like to be the person with it? And so forth. What was the most difficult thing? Any insights like that they get the aha moments they can share, but reflection is really, really important. Also, we know that wearables gives your students a chance to walk in the shoes of someone, and they're best for gaining empathy and understanding. So those are the type of wearables that, or the type of skills that many wearables will teach us, certainly empathy and understanding when they're in the shoes of someone with a condition. However, there are also wearable simulators that teach specific nursing related technical skills. And we've given you a lot of ideas of things you can do yourself. We've got a few more we're going to share in a few slides, but we can also help you save some time with some ready to go wearable simulators. And I'm going to share just a few that we have that if you don't want to take the time to create your own, that we've got ready to go. One thing to note is the wearables that we have do come with lesson plans and curricula that actually use the wearable simulator in the lesson plans. They've all been tested a lot for quality and things like that. So we just want to share a few of the wearables that we have that help teach first of all, empathy. So we've talked about some of these types of wearables already. We've got, the geriatric aging suit all the way on the left. We've got a pregnancy simulator. We've got the stroke or hemiplegia simulator. And then on the right-hand side are some of our apparatus that are simulators that come with our geriatric sensory impairment kit. And a lot of these can be created on your own on the cheap or cheaper. But if you don't want to take the time, or if you want one that's ready to go with lesson plans, we do have that type of thing available. We also have something called our geriatric medication management kit. And it's kind of a combination of a wearable and a simulation experience where it teaches what it's like to be dealing with multiple medications as an aging person that has some kind of visual impairment and sensory impairment. And we have students put the gloves on and the glasses on, and they have to work their way through 6 different medications, opening them, reading the labels and so forth. And again, that's something that's really helpful for students if they're going to be working with the aging population on the job at all. And polypharmacy is such a big issue out there. I think the latest statistic I read was the average patient over 70 has at least 6 medications. I know from personal experience, I have aging parents and they have more than that. So anyway, a great little kit to consider. But we also have wearables that teach skills. And if you're in health science, you are well acquainted with moulage and how students can really love role playing and getting into some of those wearable wounds. A few of the different ones that we have some geriatric skin condition set that you see here on the right. We've also got a special pressure injury set as well. I've also seen some very creative teachers out there that do moulage labs with students where they create their own. There's a lot of videos out there on YouTube for tutorials and things like that. So if you like to do your own or have your students create their own moulage and do role-playing scenarios that way, that's terrific. That's hands-on. Students love that. But if you want to save a little time and have some that are ready to go and can be used over and over, here's just a few examples of that. We also have a few different wearable simulators that teach technical nursing or health science skills as well. And a few of those we have a blood pressure simulator. Those are quite common. Certainly wearable injection pads are really good because when you're going to practice injecting, when it's on a person that's talking to you and you have to communicate with them, it's much different than just doing it into a isolated pad by itself. We've got wearable auscultation devices and venipuncture. Again, some of that, we have a lot more moulage than just the geriatric skin and pressure injury, but any one of those, you have them in a scenario where students have to not only do the technical skill, but they also have to do the patient communication. It's a great way to build in some soft skill training in your program. So we've got a few other sources for creating wearables that we wanted to share with you today. And we found these as we were doing some research. So you can determine whether you think they're a good idea or not, but we came across these ideas and we just thought that we would share them as part of our webinar today. So one was how to make your own needle insertion training pads, which I thought was very interesting. And it's a YouTube video. And it's only 8.5 minutes, but again, if you like to do that kind of thing, it gives you step-by-step instructions on how to do it. Might be something you'd like to try. So there's that one with the link that you see on the screen. But if you go into YouTube and you just do keyword search, make your own insertion training pads, you would also find that video. Here's one about how to make your own blood clots for simulation nursing labs. This might be one that your students would have fun first creating the blood clots and then using them in some scenarios. And I just had the a visual from that video. Again, it's not a long video, 4.5 minutes. So you could watch the video or even play it for your students and perhaps have all the materials out where students would make a few of their own blood clots. Maybe you have them in small groups, and then maybe you have some pre-done scenarios that involve blood clots, both from the patient and from the healthcare worker end of it, and then they can switch. But I thought that was also very, very creative. Here's one that's they called it a pedagogy hand, and you can see they've used some kind of a medical glove, plastic glove, and they've blown it up, or it looks like they've got a balloon inserted in it, and then some kind of a tube of sorts in it. I believe that would be then used for blood draws or something, or certainly feeling, palpating for a vein or an artery, the way it looks. So this again is at the link that you see above, and they do a good job of explaining just how to do it. And it looks like none of the materials are difficult to find. So that might be one that you also have some success with and fun creating. Here's one that during COVID that we saw more often. It's using fruit for injection training. We've seen this done with many different types of fruit. I just happened to find a couple of YouTube videos, one using an orange, the other one's using a banana. And I've also seen, I don't have any links here, but I've seen videos where you can also use fruit for doing things like suturing, cutting it open and then practice suturing. So if that's something that you think would work for your program, you might want to give that a try. Again, we're not advocating for or against, we're just sharing some of the information that we found out there when we were doing some of our research. So it's just amazing how creative a lot of health science educators are. We get our very best product ideas from educators all the time. So that's always very interesting to see what we can find when we start to do research. So before we wrap up today, we've got a few more free resources that we would like to pass along for you today. And here's one where it's some free career exploration lessons that we have specific to health science. At the link above, we've got a 1-week unit all on health science career exploration. And then we have a 1-week unit specific to the therapeutic services career exploration. And then from there, we got one also that's specific to a variety of sports medicine careers. And I believe there are 5 lessons in each of those series. And if you go out to the link there, we will send you those lesson plans. And if you're looking to make some of your career exploration a little bit more robust, they're just really easy ways to augment what you're doing. I believe most of the lesson plans last anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour if you would do everything in the lesson. But if you have less time, you could certainly just do a little bit of it. but might be worth a look. We also do have some free posters and some infographics for health science. We have one specific to sports medicine careers, which I have on the screen here. We've got another one specific to EMT careers, and then a general one on healthcare careers. You can print them off. We've got printing instruction, then put them up in your classroom. It's just a nice little thing to have on the wall to get your students thinking about the plethora of careers that they may not even be aware of that are out there in health science. One thing we also like to talk about is webinars. We think webinars are a terrific way to share information, just like the Wednesday webinars that Nishi does. We do a variety of webinars, free webinars every month for health science topics of a wide variety. Some of them might be product centric, some might be best practices from other educators, but we always archive and record everything we do, just like Nishi does. And if you go out to the health science button on our webinar, a link here on our website, you will find dozens of webinars that relate to many, many different health science topics. Most of them are around 30 minutes, so not real long. But if you're looking for some additional activities and ideas for your programs, you might find them helpful. So again, webinars, those of you who participate live will get a participant or a certificate of participation that you could use for clock hours if your state does that. But we always send out the link to the recording, the slide presentation, and then also a handout that has all the links in them. So you get a lot of things just by registering. And then a few other things that we like to do. We like to be very interactive with our blog. We frequently have guest writers that do things on our blog for activities, lesson plans. We also have hundreds of lesson plans available on that first link that you see. We have them segmented by area, topic area. So if you go to that link and you go down to health science, you will then see many of our health science products, and you can click on that and it will take you right to the lesson plans that go with that simulator or that resource. So again, don't reinvent the wheel. We might have something that you'd find useful. We also like to be really interactive on our social media. So we have things like Facebook and Twitter. Many times we will have instructors post pictures of students doing things. Sometimes we even have students get on and share some of the things that they're doing. But it's a great way to showcase some of the creative things you're doing in your program and get others excited about doing those things as well. So I know that we've been monitoring the chat for some Q&A. So I would like to stop right now and take any questions you might have on any of the wearable simulation ideas, or if you have your own wearable simulators or health science simulators that you've created for your program that you would like to share, we would love to hear from you. All right, I'm just going through the chat right now to see if we have any questions. Also, you can feel free to unmute yourself as well, that we're not a very large group, so you could also ask your questions.
Yeah, wow, what a bunch of great information and great ideas. How exciting. I know a few people were typing away like, wow, I can't keep up. There's so much. So I assured them that this will be posted in the Nishi website.
Again, if anybody has any of their own ideas that you would like to share, we would love to hear from you, because like I said, most of the time we get our very best ideas from practicing teachers and are always amazed at the creativity out there.
Someone wants to know if you have any, we did not discuss augmented reality, but they wanted to know if there's anything about augmented reality tools or software such as Google Glass or tablet technologies.
That is not an area that we specifically get into, but I know that there are other companies that do a lot with that, and it can be very, very effective, but it's just not something that we offer. One good place to go on the Nishi website is to look at all the publishers and educational resource folks that are a member of the publisher group. I believe there's a tab in on the NISHI website. And if you go in there, you may find vendors that actually have some of those technologies. But again, great. I know augmented reality can be very, very effective for teaching.
There was a webinar maybe a month ago that somewhat addressed that augmented reality. So check back in the archived webinars and you might be able to find something that you were looking for.
Any other comments or questions or ideas anyone would like to share this afternoon?
I want to know what every other people do.
Yeah, I would
those
too.
were some great suggestions. So I tried to do the moulage thing this year, and we made a big mess. But
one suggestion I would have is if you go on the HSEA Facebook page, I'm a member and I see so many really cool ideas, and moulage is one I've seen a few of lately where teachers have done labs with their students and they look so real, and it's just awesome. It really is. So if you're looking for more ideas for things like that, the HSDA Facebook page is an excellent resource and teachers love to share. So if you even have a question, you put it out there, you can say, I'm looking for a lesson on XYZ, or I'm looking for an idea for XY simulation. People will share there. It's a great forum for that.
So anybody else out there? Comments, questions? Oh, it's never wrong or bad to have a meeting end early.
No, it's not, especially at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm on the East Coast, so it's getting to be dinner time. The animals are getting hungry, but.
All right. Well, I'd like to really thank everyone for spending the time with us this afternoon. We love to pass along any ideas we find, and if any of you come across any ideas that you'd like to share with us, we want to keep adding to this list. And we love to see it grow, and so we can share again at future conferences and so forth. So thanks again. We really appreciate it very much.
Thank you, everybody. Ooh.